Welcome to In Conversation. This is the virtual question and answer period that is attached to Happy Place. Really excited to get right into some of the questions here. We've got the main players really from the film all over different parts of the world. And I guess I'll start with my own introduction. My name is Krissy Holmes. I co-host the St. John's Morning Show on CBC Radio 1. I am a consummate storyteller. I love watching how other people tell their stories, and I cannot wait to get into this. First of all, Helen Shaver, welcome.
Thank you. I'm here on Qualicum Beach in British Columbia and Vancouver Island. You know, that's where I am physically, but my spirit is in Happy Place and with you all, wishing we were actually there physically.
Oh, it would be so nice. And Clark Bacco, hello.
Hi.
Where are you?
I'm in the States. I'm in my home in Los Angeles right now, which is intense, but good. So.
Wow. Okay. Skipping around. Pamela Sinha, where are you right now?
Yeah, I'm in Toronto. I'm in my home, in my apartment in Kensington Market. I have every single window closed because it's very, very noisy in the market. So I do love it. Sad that we're not together, though I understand why, and I'm glad we're all safe and trying to keep safe. But it's tough being away from you all.
And you know, it'd be so great for us to have this conversation in person. And I know no one would love it more than Mary Walsh. Mary Walsh, where's your happy place right now?
Well, I'm on Fogo Island at Bard Islands in a little Aunt Sadie's house, not my Aunt Sadie, but they call it Aunt Sadie's house. And I'm part of the Fogo Island Arts, doing a writer's residency. And so I kind of wanted you to see out the window because even though the rest of Newfoundland seems to be suffering from surges and huge winds and rain, the sun is shining on Fogo and the sea's quite calm compared to, because on Fogo, the wind blows from all directions at the same time.
Breaking! Well, okay, we got through the introductions and I am so excited. First of all, this movie is amazing. I'm like even exploding. I don't even know where to start. I guess I'm going to start back to Helen, because Helen, what was your reaction when you got to sit down as a viewer and actually watch all of this?
After I'd finished editing and all of that stuff.
Yes.
I'm the wrong individual viewer because every frame, every moment is there by my choice. So it's what I'm missing is being quiet in the back of an audience of strangers to feel what the fruit of our labors are doing to the individuals. However, I was mourning that for quite a long time. And then something dropped. I was in conversation with Pamela actually, and it dropped into me, oh, right. Let's stop suffering about the paradigm shift. Let's embrace it and understand that this film, which is so intimate and so particular to people in general and women in specific, that it might just reach way more people on a virtual level. So, you can only put 1,000 people in a theater, but countless can stream at the same time. So the girls' story will be told. When I first read the script, when Jennifer at Sienna gave me the script about 4.5 years ago, it was a very early draft, and Pamela was adapting it from the play that she'd written, and it was very much an ensemble piece. And it was one of those things where when I read it, I knew I was making the film. I knew it would be a hard film to make. I knew I would need great actors. I knew that the film was going to go through evolutions and developments as it became more cinematic. And I knew the story had to be told. Then the next day I met Pamela. And everything that I already knew was so completely affirmed when I met this woman the inciting incidents of this film are based on, biographical to Pamela. And to meet a woman who had the words escape me, endured, suffered, experienced, whatever those words are, the reality that this film is based on, and to recognize that over time in her own recovery and healing process, and with time, she, like Wordsworth says, had made poetry, which is emotion recollected in tranquility. So I was totally in, and Pamela and I, at least from my point of view, and I instinctively trusted each other, and we carefully nourished and built that trust as we worked through this really vulnerable, particular, important piece.
That is very true, Helen.
Yeah.
My perspective too.
Yeah.
Pamela, I want to come into this and first say I was telling Helen this a minute ago. I didn't Google anything about this. I wanted to come into this clean. And there was a point at the end, right when Samira quotes that play, that it clicked into me, wait a minute, this whole thing could be a play. It wasn't until after I realized it was a play. So I mean, take us back. I mean, the adaptation process must have been really interesting because this was such a character-driven piece. I mean, place us in where that creative space sort of opened up for you.
Well, you know, ultimately a play is a very different animal than a film. And I think Helen was talking about the early draft. If I may say so, the early draft was basically the play in final draft format. So
Exactly.
It had all the right, you know, visuals of a film script, but it was literally a play that was just, you know, transferred from one page to another. So going into it cinematically was actually incredibly freeing for me. I was able to learn from, you know, our incredible producers, Jennifer Kawaja and Julia Sereny and Elise Cousineau, how to find that voice in myself. And then later, of course, with Helen's directorial vision and inspiration, to lift it off of the stage and put it into the mind of Samira. And, you know, I was so attached to the idea of it being an ensemble piece because it wasn't, I had written a play called Crash, and it was a solo piece that I performed and wrote. And the intention of Happy Place was to make the themes that we're examining in Happy Place to be more universal than specific to myself. And so I was really attached to the idea of, you know, I don't want Samira to take over. Samira is the autobiographical piece. Through Helen, through all the most beautiful films, that actually it's in going into the mind of this woman, this young woman, that we're going to see more deeply into the women who surround her and affect her and carry her through to the place where she needs to go. And in fact, it's the end of the film that I feel is truly the launching of certainly the rest of my life. And I believe in the film Samira's life. So so it was a kind of I always have visuals. Poor Clark, I'm always doing like these crazy things with my hands, but it's sort of like a kind of a this, you know, it was like this when I started, and then
Yeah. And it
was really surrendering to, I can go into her mind. We can, as an audience, see inside her heart and her thoughts and everything that I cannot access on a stage. It is such a gift. Yeah, and the power of cinema, right? Cinematic storytelling. So I would say that's sort of the journey.
In the original, and when Pamela and I talked about what is it like to live with this trauma, and Pamela described it as it was always there in the back in her mind, and she described it as a sound, and it was always in the background and sometimes would roar forward. And I said, well, this is a movie, so we, you know, which is pictures, and yes, sound will be a part of it, but let's start looking for what the imagery is. And out of all of that came what we see in the film of her subconscious, you know, which is where, and it is where the subconscious and the past meet the present, where the healing begins. Because I believe we all have in our life a moment that is frozen, a moment of trauma, maybe several of them, and they're frozen. And until we go to that moment and invite that moment into our present, where we witness it and honor it and hold it, that we're stuck. We are stuck as human beings. And so finding a way to visualize that was really exciting. And once we were in the house, it became clear to me that it was like a labyrinth, trying to find that place in herself where she could go through the door and see herself in that moment where she believed she died. And in fact, come to the moment and see, no, she was not dying. She was determined to live, right?
Oh. There's so many layers to this, and Helen, I want to start picking at every one of them, but I gotta get into Clark here now.
Beautiful.
Well, Clark, so your portrayal of Samira. Well, first of all, how did it feel for you to watch that film once it was complete?
Oh gosh. I saw quite an early version, which for an actor is always quite strange to see it before sound and all of that. But when I saw it for the first time completely edited, I watched it with my mother, which I think was a good idea, but also kind of awful to just watch her cry next to me the entire time and see her experience what I experienced, but in a different way. It was pretty trippy. But watching it for the first time, I weirdly felt like I could breathe again for the first time. I carried a lot of pain for Samira on her behalf and on Pamela's behalf. Even though Samira isn't Pamela, they're still greatly connected. And so I had to become Samira. My body thought that it had been through intense trauma. And so I think when I finally watched the movie, it felt like I was able to come full circle and kind of breathe out everything that I put my mind and body through. And I mean, I still am learning how to let go of it all, but I think watching it was kind of like the beginning of my healing, if that makes any sense.
You so took that on. Even seeing you now, I see you differently than, you know what I mean? Because my knowing of you is Samira, this character now, and I can see how much lighter you are. But I really want to hear like the connection, like Pamela, I want to bring you into this too. Like, how did you guys connect about how this character would be shaped initially? Like when you started on this journey, like how did you connect about the character of Samira?
Pamela, do you mind if I start in on that one?
Go for it, baby.
Okay. Pamela and I had a conversation really early on, thankfully, like well before filming, where I think we were having dinner, and I asked her how much of what happened to her in that bedroom did she want to tell me, or if she thought that I needed to know in detail what happened to be able to become Samira. And I think one of the most brilliant things Pamela, in my opinion, has ever done, at least for me, was to say, you don't need to know what happened. You can use your imagination because you have the freedom to create Samira. So she gave me a lot of space to play. And I know play is a weird word in a movie, but that is what it is at the end of the day, or how I have to think about it. So what we did end up talking about, instead of what specifically happened that night, we spoke about what happened afterwards. Like, how did her family treat her? How did her brother feel about it? How did her parents feel about it? How was it at the hospital? What was her life like afterwards? And having those conversations is really what allowed me, because Happy Place happens years after the actual trauma. So what I was really trying to fill in was what was life leading up to Samira attempting to take her own life. So I did use my imagination, as well as reading the script and the parts that we do see Samira talk about happened, that also happened to Pamela. I used that with my imagination and then filled in the blanks with the conversations that I had with Pamela.
And it worked. Like, all I can say is she's so beautiful, and she really, Clark inhabits the character. And I think part of it's not any great wisdom, and though I thank you for it, Clark, on my behalf, like to say what I said, because as an actor, I understand the incredible endeavor to undergo anything. You have to do it from the outside, and certainly not this role that Clark had to take on. So she created Samira in this way, and how I would just stand in the way of that. Anybody would, I'm sure there, I mean, I've certainly had the experience of writers standing in the way of my undergoing, so the last thing I wanted to do was do that to her. But you have to trust. It's a letting go, it's a surrender, eventually, after all the drafts and all the, whatever I had to do to write it, and we built this world, you have to surrender to these phenomenal artists who take on that role. And I said this, I think, on Twitter, Mary, I could only have dreamt a Mildred as Mary created. Like, I wrote them. They came from my imagination, except for the specifics of Samira's journey in the film. But really, they don't belong to me. Not one of them belongs to me. The moment that these women, or these artists, take it on. So, it's
yeah.
I'd like to say that it was definitely a women's film, and that we could see that in, like, Clark didn't do any of that, though she was extraordinarily there with Samira. She didn't do, you read about those male actors who will only let themselves be called the name that they're called, and then if they're a horrible person, they're horrible to everybody on set, and they, push people around. And there's so many stories like that, right? Where they get into the character, and then by the Jesus, they suffer, and everybody around them suffers. And Clark was not like that at all. I mean, in fact, there was an emotional scene that I had to do that I just could not find my way through. I just couldn't, you know what I mean? It was a physical thing and an emotional thing, and I didn't know how to do it. And Clark was standing next to me, and I don't even remember what it was that she said, but she was very much, and of course Helen too was there all the time, but Clark just said a couple of words to me about 15 times. I think, Clark, you had to do it before I could let go, but so that in that way of being, I was just thinking, as you were talking about Clark taking on Samira and suffering and going through that trauma and all those things, and how finally she's able to let it go and stuff like that. She also never gave up her humanity, her Clarkness, when she was there on set with us. She was always, so good and giving and kind and just a generous soul. So, and that's what was like. That's what it was like. It was a pretty grim kind of story. I had drunk Javix, and I shouldn't say that. I'm giving away a plot, but then I had no insides apparently. But anyway, never mind.
But you
that.
also brought the ups and the downs. Like, you had the moments of hilarity. Like, I cried laughing and I needed that laugh, Mary. I needed that laugh when I got it. Thank you.
Oh, good.
It was a roller coaster.
But it was grim, the stuff, of course,
yes.
Because what happens is often grim, but the set was not grim at all. I think the biggest problem that Helen had was kind of corralling us to get us to shut up when we were all together in the art room. Please just keep the noise down. But no, it was a great group to work with. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I think, sorry.
I just said thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
Thank you, Clark.
For me, the great performances come when an actor is willing to truly bring themselves to the moment, to be present and to speak their specific truth in the imaginary circumstances and through the voice piece of the character. And when an actor is willing and able to be there and present like that, extraordinary, unexpected complexities come. And I believe the truth that they then speak through the character's mouth, voice piece, and circumstance will transcend everything. It'll transcend language because it resonates as truth and it is therefore universal. And so you can identify. And that takes trust. And trust is the greatest gift one can give anybody. And I was gifted with these 7 extraordinary actors who all brought themselves and their willingness to be present, and they just knocked it out of the park. I mean, in that way, the complexities and specificness of the characters, as Pamela was saying, as she wrote them, but no way could I imagine or she imagine the specificness that each of these women brought.
It was so, I loved the part that was so interesting, Pamela, you're coming up on the screen here now, was that there was so much room for backstory and character development. I felt like even as a viewer, at one moment I related more with this one and then the other one, and I had so many questions. I wanted to follow them, but you left that up to the imagination. Like, how much detail was gifted to the cast? Like, how much was there from your writing versus, how much did they go with and create themselves, I guess?
Well, they just had my writing.
That and there was no, like, you didn't have the breakdown and they just went with it. Okay, can we talk about Joyce for a minute?
Well, just before we leave that,
yes.
What is interesting to me also is that when the film was cut, in my early cuts of the film, where every word of the script was in the film, it was 2 hours and 23 minutes long. Okay, the film is now 97 minutes long, and certainly each of the characters had more screen time, clearly, and we heard more details, perhaps, of their backstories and so on. And what was really phenomenal to me was and editing is incredible like this. I mean, what do they say about where do you get Michelangelo's David statue? Is you have a hunk of fabulous marble and you start taking things away. You get a man and you keep taking things away and you get this amazing David. And that's what I experienced in the editing of this film, because each performance was so full that we were able to strip away nearly an hour of film. And as it went away, each character became more and more moving and more curious, and left the space the way the script leaves the space for the actors to bring themselves. The edit leaves the space for the audience to bring themselves, I believe.
That's really well said.
Yeah,
that's really well said.
Helen Shaver, she's pretty good. Though she's up for a DGC Discovery Award this year.
I know.
She's only
the full audience here. I wish you could all soak in the audience reaction to this. It's really like, it's such an amazing film. I hope you don't mind me talking about, I thought the role of Joyce was really interesting. And
Yeah.
Mary, and like, she triggered everybody, even as a viewer. I don't know what it was or how she did it, or if it was in the directing or what. I don't know, you guys tell me, but like, there was something about her character immediately. I was like, oh God, when is she gonna stop talking? My God. You know, like she triggered everybody, every single, like, even you, Clark, like, you were so like, calm. And she just oh, stop, you know?
She's like the undercurrent of the entire film. She's like, she's almost like the noise that's in the back. She's like that buzzing, constant buzzing.
She is the buzzing of your conscious, of your conscience or something. I don't know, but yeah, that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, but I feel like Joyce is such a phenomenal and brilliant character because she really represents how we just have such a weird hierarchy of pain that we all have in our minds. And she really, to me, represents somebody who is just sad, and there might not be a trauma or anything like that, but can't really figure it out for themselves, and is surrounded by these women that have something they can pinpoint and say, this is why I am sad. But she doesn't really have that. And so she makes things up so that she can be a part of it. And I truly find that to be one of the saddest characters in Happy Place. But yeah, I think all she wants is for someone to look at her and say, yeah, you're sad. That's okay. I'm sad too. And your sad is just as valid as my sad. And I think that's what we're all really looking for, is just to feel seen and heard and loved.
Yeah.
Was someone else trying to talk there? I'm trying to give you some bit of space there. It really was like a total emotional journey. And it felt like it was a statement on the before and after trauma, you know, and it actually kind of took you through that journey through all these timescapes too. And like, helped me at least look at it in that way, in how to interpret that. Oh, things are different before and after. And I don't know if it was just my own interpretation, but it almost felt like that was there too. I mean, is that a thing? Is there a before and after trauma that has to be reconciled there?
Krissy, I noticed in the film, and I didn't notice it when we were shooting the film, but I think that Helen and the editor and Pamela, whoever worked on the end product, made it very clear to me, like Samira Clark would constantly say, she's gone, I'm no longer here. And it's like that catharsis. It's not that we would ever wish that kind of trauma or any trauma on anyone, but it is like the phoenix rising from the ashes, that we get that sense from the film. And I wasn't aware of that as we were making it, you know what I mean? But I was very aware of it in the film, that yes, she is gone. There's no point in looking for her anymore. That is over. That door is closed. Now there's a new Samira, right? And now we start again, right? And you go forward. I found that really, really great when I saw the film. I really was moved by that.
Thank you. I mean, that was in as we worked, you know, in the 3 years as the script evolved, and Pamela did the writing, but we had many conversations in terms of development and what to do and how to go, and there was, you know, a great drive to find a narrative to make the film familiar, right? So that, because that's what we're used to, you know, when something bad happens, you go out, you find the thing, you solve the thing, and we all live happily ever after. But that's not the truth. And so to find, to say it is an inside job, which is why, again, I chose to have the place, the center where they were, to be beautiful, you know, to make everything on the outside is fine. But that's not what it's not the job, the husband, the money, the house, the clothes, you can have all of that and be dying inside. The outside is never going to fix the inside. It is an inside job. And so for me to build a piece where actually the true action of the piece happens in the interior of Samira. It was really, really tricky. And then to get to the end and not say this is the end, but rather say this is the beginning.
Yes.
And
That's what it felt like,
I really hope that this film serves as the beginning of conversations for people who haven't been able to speak their truth, even maybe to themselves. I love when Joyce says, "Nothing happened to me." Because fuck, I wake up in the morning sometimes and nothing's happened to me, but how I feel is different. And then, one needs tools to move beyond that, to get on with your day and on with your life.
And I'm not trying to imply that there was a promise that suddenly everything was going to be better for
No,
Samira.
no.
Good, because I didn't feel that, but I felt that old Samira was gone. Absolutely. There was no getting it back, even though we long for the past sometimes, for our lost past, for our destroyed past, for our traumatic past even. There is no going back. We can only, shut the door and go forward. And I think the film made that really clear.
No, I agree with you. What you said, Mary, really, really, I'm very excited and affirmed that what you got at the end of the film is what you said.
Yeah, really.
Pamela, what was it like? Given some of what you've already told us, what was it like for you now to see this film, to sit back and kind of just take it in?
I think I was sort of, for different reasons than Helen. I wish I could see it the way the people I love and know have been seeing it. I can't see it with fresh eyes. But one thing I will, at all. But I will say that I too, Clarky, saw it with my mom last night.
Oh boy.
And I saw it with my stepdaughter, Chloe, and we watched it. And it was funny because I was like, oh, we're going to watch it on Mommy's big TV and da-da-da, bought my ticket and everything. And I was talking to my husband and I was out of breath. And I was like, what's wrong with me? I can't catch my breath. And then my brother said to me, you're anxious. And I said, but what am I anxious about? I've seen it. They all saw the play. They know everything. They know. But I'm anxious now just thinking about it. And it was because those people were seeing it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would be my first time through them. And so watching it last night was different, Helen, than any other iteration that I've seen. Mm-hmm. I really just watched it. And what Mary just identified moved me deeply. Everything leading up to it. And it felt earned, and all of your performances they make me weep, and I know it.
Well, and we need to talk about your performance also, because that's the hyphenate, right? I mean, because Pamela, during the few months leading up to when we started shooting, we'd be pushing and pulling with creative ideas and all of that. And we had a very, very fabulous relationship. We have a very fabulous relationship with a lot of trust in it by that time. And Pamela would say to me, but Helen, what the moment the script is locked, I can't wait, because then I can be an actor, and then you can be my director as an actor, and I'm just going to give you. And I would think, yeah, that's good. That sounds good, and I hope that. But I had this grain of salt in me going, yeah, we'll see about that. This is going to be hard, right? But the amazing thing was that Pamela was, we made a couple of rules, and I shared with the other actors. The writer prefers that you speak to me about the writing, and I'll talk to her. She and Pamela's acting in this, so we had all of that, and everyone respected that. And then Pamela was true to her word. She was able to give herself to Rosemary, and create that character, embody that character, and give herself to me as an actor does to a director. which is pretty fucking impressing, I have to say. Can we say fucking?
Yeah, sure. You just did.
I was called 12 days on our very short shooting schedule, and I only came to set those 12 days. But my God, my heart was with Clark every minute. Like,
It was
just like, I don't even, I'm getting emotional because I haven't talked to you since I saw it the way I saw it last night.
What do you want to say to her?
She was beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful. What she made. Because your body as an actor, and I understand this as one, doesn't know you're acting.
Yeah.
You don't know you're acting. It doesn't know this is pretend. So what she had to go through to make her real, I felt it in the film and I saw it. And each one of these women brought their artistry, and Helen, your guidance and your shaping of those performances, I feel such deep gratitude. And I don't think this is all in response to your question, Krissy, that how did I feel watching it? Until last night, I couldn't feel it, you know? So anyway, you're getting all of this because I just saw it last night.
This was, I'm not that close to it, obviously, but this was me last night, Pamela, because it brought up other things, right? I think every woman probably watching this is going to relate to somebody else or walk in that. But like, I guess, like, Clark, I mean, if you don't mind me asking, how did you go there as an actress? Like, how do you willingly inflict that on your body and get out there and wear that in front of, like, what was your process to do that?
Oh, honestly, I think I blacked out for that whole thing. I have no idea. I don't even think I could do that again. I don't know what I did other than make sure I was like willing and open. But the only thing I'm sure of is that Helen created a safe space so that I knew that when they called rap every day, I would be okay. Even if I went back and had nightmares and was scared and couldn't breathe sometimes, I still knew that there was Helen creating a safe space on set, Pamela supporting me, sending me text messages, coming by if I needed her, Mary, Sheila, Tara, everyone had my back, and I felt that. So it made it possible for me to come to set every day. And I felt like, not in a bad way, but I felt like if you're all here supporting me, I don't have an excuse. And I owe everyone for loving me this hard with barely knowing me to just open my heart and be brave and go for it. I can't say I had any specific process because I'm not a method actor or anything like that. I don't know. I read Hiding, which is an essay that Pamela wrote. That was the one that helped me probably the most because it's so raw. I think Hiding's the first thing you ever wrote about it, right? And you can feel that when you read it because it's so brilliant, and it's one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever read in my life. But there's this tiny little glint of hope, and that's kind of what guided my process, was that in the darkness there is hope, and Pamela is here today telling the story, and that's what this really is all about. So I don't know what my process was. I think just trusting everybody else was the only way that I could do it.
And every one of the actors, I mean, when we think of Mary's performance, and the moment where she breaks the bowl, all the volcano building up inside of her until she slaps that bowl and then sees the shattered glass and tries to fix the unfixable. Mary standing by herself in her room, that kind of vulnerability. I mean, that's scary stuff, right, Mary? I mean, I don't know, no matter how many times you do it, it's like it's scary. It's scary to let yourself go and jump off a cliff and not know whether you're going to be caught or not. And
It's
And
always scary acting. Like I had to go to Helen a number of times sobbing, going, I don't belong here. I shouldn't be here. You know, Helen asked me exactly the right question in answer to that. But I remember doing the comedy, you know, that little dog, and I would have to phone, I think I phoned Andy Jones and Joel Hines a couple of times. And I was doing a big man comedy kind of guy, but I was so in it that I would be lost in it. I just felt so ashamed because you're so ashamed to be so open.
yeah.
And so I'd be overwhelmed with shame as Mildred and also as that guy, because the more open, for me anyway, and that the more open, having gone to the nuns, of course, I really, you know, close to shame. But you know, that you would feel, I would, yeah. So every time you break yourself open, it's good. But there is a price to be paid for sure. But then I found that with Helen and Clark and Pamela and the rest of the women, and I was just thinking of Clark particularly because in a way, you know, this is going to sound really trite, but it was really her pain that led the way. And she went through that every day, and yet she still fucked around and had a few laughs and, you know, had a best friend. And, you know, she sort of made a box that we could all be in and be set. You know, Helen gave us the bigger box, then Clark went in there, and then we followed her in. And so, you know, I really can't speak highly enough about, because I have been on sets where people have, you know, made it very, very difficult to be open, you know, and it's already very difficult to be open. And
I remember the first conversation we had on the phone, Mara, when and it was around that we got to that glass breaking scene, and I said, you know, and we're talking about letting the sound of whatever that is deep down at the bottom of you rise up and come through you, and I'm yapping away. He's trying to just, you know, and Mary's on the other end, and she says, yes, well, I have spent a lifetime making sure I didn't make those sounds. Okay,
yeah.
Here we go. But
yeah,
so beautiful, and each one of them, I mean, like Mariev and Mariev, that's a hard role to, and she and Clark bonded as human beings, and their friendship blossomed, and that's that friendship of love where, you know, before you can love yourself, sometimes it's easier to love somebody else. Like when I'm working with somebody who's in a state, and I've tried all kind of intellectual things, maybe I'll say to them, look, why don't you just think of yourself as a baby? If you don't know how to take care of yourself, just pretend you're a baby and do the things you would do for a baby, right? And sometimes we can start to learn how to self-love through loving others, right? And so Celine's character with Samira, it's in that bonding of love, and then watching Celine walk away, that is because love has already opened her, and that breaks Samira to be able to go on that leg of her journey that she then begins.
Yeah, and if I could just say that scene when she leaves, that was actually Mariev's last scene before she was wrapped out. So it was a real goodbye. That was hard.
Yeah.
I was saying goodbye to two people at the same time.
Yeah.
And
It
you
was
know
horrible.
how irritating.
I mean, it was so sad.
Okay.
Sorry, it was amazing, but it was so sad. I'm sorry.
You know how irritating Joyce is in the movie?
Yes.
Well, and I don't know, you know, it is remarkable, isn't it? Because Sheila McCarthy is the most less irritating person ever in the history of the world, perhaps, and was such a joy to be around every day. And she'd get on set and she would be this irksome, horrible person. But I must say, yeah, it was just.
I just love her. I don't know why,
yeah.
but I loves it. You know,
Yeah.
like it's so irritated at the same time. I'm not being like an actress. Like I look at what all of you do and I say like, they must be like magic or something. Like how the hell do you go transform into this magical super being, take all that on, really feel it, and then go away? And like, does anybody get you? Like, I mean, Helen, it must be really handy to have an acting background directing a piece like this. Because I mean, how much of that experience had to go into your leadership and, I don't know, building up some kind of, what would you even call it, like energetic protection? Like, how do you, like, how do you renew your cast every day, kind of going through that experience?
Well, I mean, the fact that I am an actor and I don't have to pretend that I respect actors. I don't have to pretend that I honor their work, their effort, that I love their willingness, And I remember when I was acting, not with the great directors that I worked with, but there were a lot of mediocre and sub-mediocre directors that I worked with over the years, and from whom I learned a lot. And I often wondered, there's an adjective that's getting attached to actors here. What is the adjective? And the first concept meeting that I sat in, which was a room full of men, may I say, and we were planning a schedule, and I said, well, this actor will need this guy. No, I don't want to do that. I would want to start the day with that because he would need the rehearsal. And one of the writer producers said, and I quote, "Oh, Helen, come on, he's just a fucking actor." And it wasn't the fucking that hit me, it was the just. And to think that an actor is just anything, it broadcasts one's ignorance and disrespect about what the creative process is that actors go through. Because the greatest actors make it look like nothing. And even within the industry, that scene, I mean, if you remember the film Ordinary People, everybody, Mary Tyler Moore, Tim Hutton, they all got Academy Awards except for Donald Sutherland. And that is one of Donald Sutherland's greatest performances because it's invisible. His performance is invisible. You have at no moment you think this guy is acting. And I would wager when the audience looks at Happy Place, they're not going to see any acting. They're just going to meet 7 extraordinary women.
Oh, yes. 7 worlds that I want to go into and follow individually even. I know I got to go back to something else you said there, because given the people, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that want to pick all of your brains with lists, and I'll get my reporter notepad now. Helen, what makes for a mediocre director? Give us the list of what not to do.
Designing a shot for the shot's sake, that just because it's cool, but that it doesn't speak to the story underneath the story. Or saying to an actor, that was great, do it exactly like that again. Because that's impossible, that'll ruin a take. I mean,
Why though? Why? I have to understand this. Why?
Because you can never do it exactly. Never. If I've got one foot in the past and one foot in the present, in the future, as an old man once said to me, you got one foot in the past and one foot in the future, all you can do is piss on the present. You're not present. So it is, to be trying to recreate a moment that you just lived is nonsense. Rather, you must come to neutral and begin again and take the journey. And I mean, if you think of a great concert pianist who must practice to learn every note, and they practice, but their greatness lies in when they sit down to give that performance, they just begin at the first note. And they trust that all that other stuff is there, and they play the piece. And I say to my actors, take the ride, tumble, let it tumble, don't design, because all of that is already done. And so now just let me look at you and take the ride. And that's what I think that's great. I mean, no, I mean, the same as when in my parenting, the same with my directing, and the same with my friends, the same with my husband. When I don't know what to do in a moment, I think, let me be the director that I would want to have at this moment.
Mm.
And that's the best I can do.
Awesome. I want to wrap this up with a final question to each of you, but I've got that many. I'm really open-minded. I almost want to ask what you want to say, if that's a reflection, if it's a lesson learned, or what you are realizing about it, even just listening to everybody else's conversation. I guess next, I mean, Pamela, is there anything that you want to leave us with? No pressure. I got a million questions.
You know, I wish I could remember the name of this philosopher, but there's a philosopher was useless. What I just said, because I can't remember the name of him.
Oh, who cares? What was something like he said? We're cool with that.
Said something that about, you know, that the gift of art, I'm paraphrasing really badly, but that the purpose, if there is a purpose to art, it's to allow a person to step into the shoes of another person, like to really experience what it is to be someone else, you know, and that's what I hope. I hope that everyone who comes, or anyone who comes, we're not even coming anywhere. Anyone who sits pajamas in their bed.
Has Happy Place become more relevant in 2020, Pamela? Like, I mean, what year would you have written this? And you know, just to sort of follow along, it just feels like it's only going to get more relevant.
I hope it's obscure. Not. I mean, my hope for it is that it's obscure, that we don't have stories, and it's completely irrelevant, and you know they're past their due date. That's what I hope. That's my hope. And sadly, it is relevant, you know.
Well, maybe I should explain. Maybe I should do the headline background detail on that and say what I took from it was, don't be so judgy. You don't know what you don't know. And it was like, beep, beep, back up and just go, okay, fine. I don't know why she just walked away from her son who's standing there in the window. It made me upset, but I don't know why. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know why, but I've got to be okay with that. And now I got to move on. I'm going back to follow the next character, and I've just got to leave that there. But there was a real message for me of just kind of not jump to a conclusion about somebody too, right?
Be kind. That's the biggest thing. Be kind.
And the other thing is, it's so hard to make a movie. And, you know, there's a movie that I made years ago with the same producers, and the writer would actually be on set and would actually move your arm where she wanted it to be moved. The director was a madman. I mean, it was just like a nightmare. The makeup and hair people were taken away by the police. We had to have our hair done at the Countessa in Sydney, and in North Sydney at the Countessas.
And Barry, you got to tell us more. Where was this? Call it out, girl.
It was a nightmare, but the movie was great. And so, you know what I mean? There is magic, like you said about magic, there is magic there. And we were so lucky to have really good people and magical people. And sometimes you can end up, you know, it's just so goddamn difficult to make a movie. Yeah. It really is, don't you think?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The fact that it, Mary? Sorry.
No, the fact that it exists at all. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's hard to get a movie financed. I mean, it takes the country in this case, right? Thank you, Telefilm. Thank you, CBC Film. Thank you, Ontario Creates. Thank you, Sienna. Thank you, Pacific Northwest Pictures. Because literally, it's a cobbling together of small amounts of money to be able to get enough money. And like, for me, it was also an incredible, I wanted to I wanted to know if I could take all that I'd learned in my life and my career as an actor and as a director and strip it down to one camera, a handful of people, one location, a powerful script, and tell a story. And so for young filmmakers or older filmmakers who are emerging like me, yes, you can make a movie with a single camera and a good script and great actors.
What did this film mean to your career, Helen? I mean, you like, given everything, what does this film mean to you?
You know, Helen is down making those H.P. Lovecraft things and all those HBO stuff, you know, and her husband said to her, "What are you trying to build up your resume, Helen?" Because she already is an iconic, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Person, director, actor. Yeah.
Well, yes, you know, I am really at a place in my life. You know, my mother lived to 101 and a half, so I figure I got
Oh my God.
30 odd years. 30, you're going to be seeing me around for a long time. But time, how one spends one's time and one's creative force and who you work with, for me right at this moment is really important. And so I turn down a lot of work, and I look for those pieces where it tells truths that I know, and with people who I want to work with. And this film, we'll see what it does for my career. but more importantly, I want to see what it does for the audience.
Clark, what are your final thoughts? I don't even know what to ask you, but I really want to know what you're thinking right now.
I don't know. It's all very surreal. I guess what I was just saying about being kind, that's what I always come back around to, because we all share in feeling pain. That's what Happy Place is all about. We're all feeling pain. It's a universal feeling. But I mean, I just got a new tattoo, and it's based on this poem by Khalil Gibran. And he says, "Your joy can fill you only as deeply as your sorrow has carved you." And that has rung true for me so much, especially recently. And so we all have sorrow, but we need sorrow to feel joy. But can we help each other feel that joy? That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, and at this time, you know, we're down to it now, aren't we? I mean, COVID says, "I can't breathe." The fire's burning says, "I can't breathe."
Mm-hmm.
George Floyd says, "I can't breathe." The earth has been saying, "I can't breathe." And each of us are part of each other. And when one can't breathe, Samira can't breathe, none of these women can breathe in life and exhale and surrender themselves to that moment of letting go, that dying, which is what we do on every breath. We live and we die. And we do that together universally. And so now we have Me Too, and for me, Happy Place is what now? What do we do about all of this as individual humans, women, as we move forward with all our scars and bruises and trauma, and find each other and learn to breathe?
Mm-hmm. And Mary, maybe this is a good way to bring this home. Like, when you think about how this is going to resonate with the Newfoundland and Labrador audience in this moment, what do you hope they take away from this?
Something that may not be appropriate to say here, but Pamela had to go to the United States to get the help that she needed. It wasn't available in our country. Still, we spend the least amount of money of any G7 country on research into mental health issues. We have if you're an adolescent in this country, anywhere in this country, you might wait 18 months to see a psychologist. I hope that people take away from it you know, it's like, you know, I remember Pamela saying to Clark, it's in your body, you know, and it is. Our minds and our bodies are not, it isn't a Cartesian setup. We are one. It's only health, you know, it's health. It's not mental health and physical health. It is health, and all parts of health are important. And we take care of our hearts now, and we can do open heart surgery like that, and you can be out in 4 days. But still, we don't know what to do about the trauma, how to deal. The questions are still out there, and we need to spend the money to find out how to do it and to provide the care
Mary.
Yes, Mary, all hail.
Love you, Mary.
Yes.
That's perfect.
The connecting the dots. Yes. There is that thing. Like, I know David Suzuki used to say that, or does say that. It's like, we say there's, you know, health, economy, and, you know, environment. No, they're all the same thing. Like, they're all the same thing, right? But but that is so interesting. So 18 months, man, that is a long time in a hard time, like a pandemic.
Happen in
and one day,
oh, it's worse now. Yeah.
When a person is in crisis, in the kind of quiet, solitary, isolated crisis, that depression, where you're standing on the edge of the building and really, really thinking about stepping off, to wait 5 minutes, 5 days, never mind 18 months, is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a really good point, because when you need the kind of help that these women needed, they needed it now.
Mm-hmm.
And this might be a good point to somehow put up the suicide crisis and intervention line number on the screen, because it potentially could be triggering. What do you want to say about that? And Pamela, let me put that to you. How do you want to prepare people for what could potentially be triggering?
Gosh, I'll take help from anybody for that question.
I would say, please watch the whole movie.
Yes.
Because it likely will be triggering. But I think if you finish the movie, you will also find a little shred of understanding of your own self, and understanding that every day is a choice and that you have control over that choice. But yeah, maybe just make sure you're watching it with a loved one.
And I think, you know, if you go into, I mean, for art, you know, it's a very good question, because I think that question comes up in the creation of much art that is, you know, challenging for various reasons. But I don't like to say it's triggering, because it may be triggering. I mean, I don't know. The word is a complicated word.
It is, yeah. And, you know, I'm glad you back out of that. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think it's very, I mean, in truth, usually when we see something about suicide, it is dealing with the people who are left behind, the collateral damage of suicide, as opposed to this film, where we are actually in conversation with people who want to be dead, who tried to be dead, but are actually present, which is unique. And I think simply that there is another side to it brings hope. I would hope.
I think also, like, yes, there will be, you know, we don't know. We're all individuals. We don't know. I mean, something could trigger you that isn't going to trigger me in a million years. And by, you know, we just don't know what the triggers of life are, generally speaking, let alone in subjects like suicide or sexual assault and those things. Because I think it's a film about humanity. And my intention is that there was no story like this when I needed to feel like I was part of a community, that I wasn't alone in my suffering. And I think anybody who watches this film, if they finish it from beginning to end, and I really believe that once they start, they won't stop, as Clark says, they will feel less alone.
Yeah.
And that's the point. That's the point. And that supersedes I think everything else, that they will finish this film and know I'm not the only one, or the person sitting next to me is not the only one, or the person that I know from a distant memory who I didn't understand at that time was not the only one. You know, if they can recognize themselves or in each other, or that they are not alone in this. We are not alone. And it's extremely scary right now because we are living in isolation. So that myth is even hyper realized in this time, right? That we are alone. We are not alone. And this community where Samira walks into, where she feels in her life she's alone, she finds that she isn't, but is. Each one of them is. And the choices in front of them are their own choices, you know? And I think there's great humanity in that. And it's not something to fear, but in fact, something to find comfort in.
Right. And hopefully people walk away with the implicit understanding that in order to recover, you have to first uncover. And really that this is and we can each do that. We can do that.
Yeah.
You can't do it alone, because you can't heal your sick mind with your sick mind. It's not possible.
Right.
Man, there's so many things that I want to talk about there, but we're not supposed to do the spoilers. All I'm going to say is yes, it's all, you know, you helped me understand, all of you, how that feels. You put us in there for what that feels like when it's always there. And that feels like something a lot of people are going through right now. It's been such a great honor to speak with all of you and to get a sense of where you came from into this film. I want to say thank you, because this film to me is everything now. I feel like this was what I've been looking for a long time. So yeah, fangirling over here a little bit, but it was genuinely just everything. You guys rock. I'm trying not to be emotional now. But you did it all to me last night, just like what you're saying, Pamela. Like, it's not from the same place, but yeah, had a moment last night. It was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Krissy. Thank you.
Krissy.
And thank you for bringing us all together. What a treat to see you guys. Wow.
You too. Kiss the cold.
Yeah, really. I wonder, what was it? Was it the Vancouver Film Festival you were watching last night, Pamela?
No. It was Sudbury.
Oh, Sudbury. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I'm going to go in St. John. Oh, no, I can't. There is one actual film, the one that was made in St. John's, where they're actually going to let 50 people in the theater, like, wow. You know, but I don't think that's going to happen for, even though in my mind I was thinking, I'm going to tell everybody I'm going to go, I'm going to send them the thing but I don't think it's going to happen. But anyway, there you go. I was wrong.
I suppose we should do a nice clean end, should we? And just give them a yay, bye. Okay, I'll try to be more succinct here and just say, I want to thank all of you for your time, your thoughts, and for making this great film. Thank you, and best of luck in the future.
Thank you so much, Krissy.
Thank you, Krissy, for bringing us all together. Thank you.
Stay safe and stay sane.
You too. Bye.
Love the one you're with.